Hello, friends, and welcome to this audiobook summary. Today, we're exploring one of the most influential and eye-opening books ever written on money and wealth, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, by Robert Kiyosaki. But before we begin, let me ask you something. Why is it that so many people spend their entire lives working tirelessly, chasing promotions, and collecting paychecks, yet they always seem to struggle financially? While others, who may not be more intelligent or hardworking, manage to build wealth, retire early, and enjoy true financial freedom? Robert Kiyosaki had the rare opportunity to discover the answer firsthand. He grew up with two fathers, two powerful influences who gave him completely opposite lessons about money. His real father, whom he calls Poor Dad, was highly educated, intelligent, and believed deeply in the traditional path: study hard, get good grades, and secure a safe job. But despite all his efforts, he never achieved financial security. His right best friend's father, Chon, whom he calls Rich Dad, was a businessman with little formal education, but he possessed a sharp financial mind. His philosophy was the complete opposite. Don't work for money. Make money work for you. This book and this summary is not just about earning money. It's about mindset, choices, and freedom. It's about understanding why some people stay financially trapped while others break free and build long-lasting wealth. Over the next 40 minutes, we'll uncover the timeless lessons of Rich Dad, Poor Dad through stories, examples, and practical takeaways that can truly transform the way you think about the money. So sit back, relax, and get ready for a journey that might change the way you see your financial future. Now in Chapter 1, The Rich Don't Work for Money. Robert was just 9 years old when he first began to notice the difference between his two fathers. Every day, his poor dad, his real father, would remind him, study hard, get good grades, and find a secure job. That's the path to success. He truly believed education was the ticket to financial security. But then there was his rich dad, his best friend Mike's father, who had an entirely different view of life. He would say, the moment you work for money, you give up control. Don't work for money. Instead, learn how to make money work for you. 9 years old, Robert didn't fully understand this, but he was curious. Why would one father with a PhD struggle financially, while the other, who never finished 8th grade, was building wealth? So Robert and Mike decided to ask Rich Dad for advice. Can you teach us how to be rich? They asked. Rich Dad smiled, and instead of giving a lecture, he gave them an opportunity. He put them to work in one of his small convenience stores, paying them just 10 cents an hour. For weeks, Robert and Mike stacked shelves and swept floors. At first, Robert was excited to earn money, but soon he got frustrated. The work was boring, the pay was tiny, and he felt cheated. Finally, he confronted Rich Dad. This isn't fair. You're not paying me enough. I'm working hard and I deserve more. Rich Dad looked him in the eye and said something that would change Robert's life forever. Good. You're starting to feel how most people feel when they work for money: angry, trapped, and powerless. That's exactly what I wanted you to learn. The truth is, most people let money control their lives. They wake up, go to work, earn a paycheck, and spend their lives chasing security. That's called the rat race. But if you want to be rich, you must learn to make money work for you. This was Robert's first big lesson. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them. Rich Dad explained, opportunities are everywhere, but most people can't see them because they're too busy worrying about not having enough money. Fear and desire control them. Fear of being broke and desire for nice things. But once you break free from that cycle, money becomes your servant, not your master. Robert realized that money wasn't the real problem. It was mindset. If you only rely on a paycheck, you'll always be at the mercy of your employer. But if you learn to spot opportunities, build assets, and think differently, you can achieve financial freedom. This first lesson set the stage for everything else Robert would learn from Rich Dad. Don't chase money. Chase knowledge, skills, and assets. Because once you master money, it will work for you, even while you sleep. Chapter 2. Why teach financial literacy? After learning his first lesson, don't work for money, make money work for you, Robert was eager to dive deeper. Rich Dad sat him and Mike down one afternoon and asked, "Do you know the difference between an asset and a liability?" Robert thought for a moment. Like most kids, he assumed an asset was something valuable, like a house or a car. But Rich Dad shook his head. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. That simple definition shocked Robert. He had never heard money explained like that before. Rich Dad continued, "Most people think their house is their biggest asset. But is it really? Does your house put money in your pocket every month? Or does it take money out through mortgages, repairs, taxes, and maintenance?" Suddenly, Robert began to see the trap. Poor Dad always said, "Buy a house. It's your biggest investment." But Rich Dad was saying the opposite. Most people's houses are actually liabilities. Rich Dad explained, the rich focus on building assets, things that generate income, like businesses, stocks, bonds, or rental properties. The poor and middle class, on the other hand, spend their lives buying liabilities they think are assets, like cars, houses, or gadgets, things that drain their money instead of growing it. He drew a simple diagram on a piece of paper. Assets column: businesses, real estate, stocks, royalties, intellectual property. Liabilities column: turi, mortgage, loans, car payments, credit card debt. If you want to be rich, he said, fill up your asset column, keep your expenses low, reduce liabilities, and grow the flow of income from your assets. For example, imagine two people. Person A buys a big house with a huge mortgage. Every month, their paycheck goes straight into loan payments, utilities, and maintenance. They feel rich, but in reality, their money is flowing out. Person B rents a modest apartment, but invests in a small rental property that pays them rent every month. Over time, they add more assets: stocks, bonds, businesses. Their money flows in, even while they sleep. Guess who ends up wealthier? This was Robert's second great lesson. It's not how much money you make that matters. It's how much money you keep and how effectively that money works for you. That's why Rich Dad insisted on teaching financial literacy. Without it, people can earn high salaries but still live paycheck to paycheck. With it, even an average income can lead to financial freedom. Robert realized that financial education was more important than school education when it came to wealth. Schools taught math, history, and science, but almost nothing about money. And that's why so many people, even highly educated ones, struggled financially their whole lives. Chapter 3, Mind Your Own Business. After teaching Robert and Mike the difference between assets and liabilities, Rich Dad leaned in with his next powerful lesson. Don't just work for someone else's business, mind your own business. At first, Robert was confused. He thought Rich Dad was telling him to quit his job and start a company right away. But Rich Dad clarified, I don't mean start a business tomorrow. I mean, even if you work for someone else, always focus on building your own asset column, the part of your life that generates money for you, not just for your boss. Rich Dad explained how most people spend their lives working for three groups. 1. The company. They give their time and skills to make their employer rich. 2. The government. They pay taxes before they even see their paycheck. 3. The bank. They spend what's left paying off mortgages, car loans, and credit cards. By the time most people are done paying everyone else, he said, there's little left for themselves. That's why they stay in the rat race. The secret to escaping the rat race. Rich Dad's advice was simple but powerful. Keep your day job if you need to, but while you're working, always set aside time and money to build your own business, your asset column. That could mean buying rental properties, investing in stocks or bonds, building a small side business, creating intellectual property like books, music, or patents. Each of these adds to your asset column, slowly shifting you from working for money to making money work for you. Robert noticed the difference between his two dads here more than ever. His poor dad always worked harder for promotions, raises, and job security. He thought the key to wealth was climbing the corporate ladder. His rich dad, meanwhile, spent his time and money buying assets. He didn't care much about job titles. He cared about the cash flow. Over time, Robert saw which strategy worked. His poor dad retired broke. His rich dad retired rich. Mind your own business means don't get so caught up in working for others that you forget to build something of your own. Rich Dad ended the lesson with a powerful line. The rich focus on their asset columns. Everyone else focuses on their income statements. That one sentence stuck with Robert for life. Chapter 4. The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. One day, Rich Dad asked Robert and Mike a surprising question. Do you know why the rich often get richer, even with taxes, while the poor and middle class struggle more and more? Robert guessed, because they make more money? But Rich Dad shook his head. No, it's because the rich understand the power of corporations and the history of taxes. And the poor and middle class don't. Originally, taxes were meant to punish the rich. Hundreds of years ago, kings and governments sold the idea that taxing the wealthy would help society. The poor and middle class supported it. Why not? The rich had plenty of money. But soon governments discovered that taxing only the rich wasn't enough, so they extended taxes to everyone. Suddenly, the poor and middle class were paying too. Meanwhile, the rich had already learned how to protect themselves. They used corporations. Rich Dad explained it this way. An employee earns money, pays taxes first, and spends what's left. A corporation, on the other hand, earns money, spends on business expenses first, and then pays taxes on what's left. This small difference makes a massive impact. For example, an employee earning $100,000 might lose 30% to taxes and spend the rest. A corporation earning $100,000 could first deduct expenses, travel, salaries, insurance, even cars before taxes are applied. In short, corporations give the wealthy legal ways to protect and grow their money. The rich aren't cheating the system, he said. They're using the rules that exist. The poor and middle class don't know these rules, so they end up paying more. Rich Dad wasn't saying everyone should run out and start a giant corporation. Instead, he wanted Robert and Mike to understand the principle. Financial knowledge is power. The more you understand money, taxes, and corporations, the more control you have over your financial future. Poor Dad always said, work hard, pay your taxes, and be a good citizen. He trusted the system. Rich Dad said, learn the system and use it to your advantage. Don't just earn money, protect it, grow it, and control it. This was Robert's fourth major lesson. The rich play by a different set of rules, not because they're special, but because they learn how money really works. Chapter 5. The Rich Invent Money. By now, Robert was beginning to see money in a completely new way. But one day, Rich Dad gave him a lesson that was even more surprising. Money is not real, Rich Dad said. It's just an idea, and the rich know how to invent money. Robert frowned. Invent money? How can anyone invent money? Rich Dad explained. Most people say they can't afford something, but the rich don't say that. They ask, how can I afford it? That one small question opens the mind to new possibilities. Poor Dad always taught Robert to play it safe. If there wasn't enough money, you worked harder, cut expenses, or borrowed. But Rich Dad showed him something different. Wealth is created by spotting opportunities that others miss. The world is full of opportunities. Rich Dad said, but most people never see them because they're too focused on fear or greed. Fear of losing money or greed for spending it. Rich Dad gave examples. A property investor might buy a house that others overlook, fix it, and sell it for a profit. A business person might see a problem in the market and create a product to solve it. An investor might spot an undervalued stock and buy it before the rest of the market catches on. Opportunities are everywhere, Rich Dad said, but only those trained to see them will act. The poor wait for money to be handed to them. The middle class play it safe. The rich invent money through vision, creativity, and action. Robert saw the contrast clearly. His poor dad often said, "I can't afford it." That was the end of the conversation. His rich dad always asked, "How can I afford it?" That question sparked creativity and solutions. One mindset shut doors. The other opened them. Wealth isn't about having money. It's about having ideas and the courage to act on them. The single most powerful asset you have is your mind. Rich Dad reminded Robert, if trained well, it can create enormous wealth. But if you let fear and doubt control it, it can keep you poor for life. This was Robert's fifth great lesson. The rich don't wait for money, they invent it. Chapter 6, Work to Learn, Don't Work for Money. One afternoon, Rich Dad asked Robert and Mike a simple but life-changing question. Why do you think so many educated, talented people still struggle financially? Robert thought about his poor dad, an intelligent man with multiple degrees yet always worried about money. Rich Dad explained, it's because schools teach people how to work for money, but not how money works. They train you to become specialists, accountants, engineers, teachers, doctors, but rarely do they train you to be financially free. Poor Dad believed in higher education as the ultimate key. He would often say, get a degree, get a good job, climb the ladder. But Rich Dad warned, the world is full of highly educated professionals who struggle financially. Why? Because they only learn skills that make them employees, not skills that build wealth. Rich Dad's advice was clear. Don't just work to earn a salary, work to learn new skills. He encouraged Robert and Mike to master 3 core abilities that the wealthy rely on. 1. Sales and marketing, the ability to communicate, persuade, and influence. 2. Investing and accounting, understanding how money flows, how to read numbers, and how to grow wealth. 3. Management and leadership, building teams, handling people, and scaling businesses. If you can master these skills, Rich Dad said, you can build anything. If you can't, you'll always depend on someone else to give you a paycheck. Robert saw the contrast. His poor dad avoided risk, stayed in his comfort zone, and focused on academic achievement. His rich dad embraced learning outside of school, through real estate deals, businesses, investments, and people. Poor Dad's path led to security but not wealth. Rich Dad's path led to freedom. Work to learn, not to earn. Take jobs, projects, or ventures that teach you valuable skills, even if they don't pay well at first, because in the long run, knowledge and experience will bring you far greater wealth than a salary ever could. Rich Dad left Robert with a final reminder. The most important investment you can make is not in stocks, real estate, or business. The most important investment is in your own mind and skills. Once you learn how to make money work for you, no one can ever take that knowledge away. We've now walked through the 6 powerful lessons from Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert's poor dad was smart, hardworking, and well-educated, but he stayed financially insecure his whole life. Rich Dad, with little formal education, built wealth and freedom by mastering money. The truth is this: financial freedom is not about how much money you earn. It's about how much you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations it serves. Two paths ahead. At the end of the day, you and I stand at the same crossroads Robert did as a young boy. We can choose the path of poor dad, security but struggle, or we can choose the path of rich dad, learning, building assets, and achieving freedom. Rich Dad's words echo like a challenge. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them. The choice is yours. So as you finish this audiobook, ask yourself, which path will you take? Because your financial future doesn't begin with money in your pocket. It begins with the mindset in your mind. Thank you for listening to this audiobook summary of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If these lessons inspired you, share them, apply them, and let them transform your financial journey.